Achieving success, thriving under pressure without external validation. Why do some people thrive while others crumble under pressure? What separates those who rise above their failures from those who drown in them? Welcome to MarComTech-niques, a podcast about marketing communications and technology with special series on thought leadership. Be sure to follow us on social media and on your favorite podcast platform. I'm your host and executive producer, 𝐤𝐤𝐼𝐶. There are a lot of wealthy people who are successful with a bunch of failures, lawsuits, even bankruptcy. I can see why. There will always be crabs in a barrel scenario. Not to say all wealthy people all have integrity, and that is how they earn their money. But let's talk about the real problem behind toxic issues: shame. Crabs in a barrel is a metaphor for people who hold each other back. You ever see crabs in a barrel and where one tries to escape and the other ones pull them down while also trying to escape? They don't work as a team. If you have shame, the chances of you becoming successful with integrity is 0 to none. Not to say you will always behave like a superhuman and be on your best behavior 24 hours a day, but you're working towards that goal as well. Now, let's break down what is shame. I'm not talking about guilt, which is based on an action, and you can apologize and move on because it's based on a transgression. We all were guilty of something, and if you ever did something wrong, well, there's good news for you. Guilt is a personal indictment that you have some accountability to address. It's that simple. Shame is based on low self-esteem. Having guilt through the perception of what others may think of you. You can't put your finger on why you feel shame because shame is not based on any specific action like guilt, but on your perception of what others might think of you, meaning it's all in your imagination. As leaders, we can't live in the imagination world. There's too much uncertainty in that. It takes away your confidence. You don't know if that person even has integrity, that you may want to win his or her approval, which is insane to begin with. How is that leadership? Why would you want to gain someone's approval that you don't even know, or you are uncertain of their character? You don't even know if that person has integrity in order to want to win them over. A lack of integrity is fixed with a personal building of that flaw. And that will prevent you from your guilt turning into shame. Because when you're not accountable for your actions, you start to scan people for their perception. It creates an approval necessary that steals your power of leadership. Integrity prevents leaders from shame and looking for approval where they already have that power within. Many of you want approval from people who lack character. There's a difference between character and personality. Personality is superficial and temporary. It is a public display filled with pleasantries and sometimes false greetings and inquiries of well-being. But character is who you are when no one's looking. It is when integrity opens the door, or the lack thereof. You can have a kind personality and a bad character. You can have a kind character and a bad personality. You can have both a kind personality and character, or a bad personality and bad character, and be unlikable and detestable altogether. Personality and character are determined by being nice versus kind. Many people look at personality and deflect their kind nature onto people and will go and argue that person is kind because he or she has a nice personality. I think when we were all younger, that was a common trait in many of us. Deflect who we are onto others because we want to believe in people. Or the opposite. We want to justify everyone is bitter and can't possibly ever find joy because certain people don't know how to define that. Sometimes we make bad choices in our youth. And when you're in the thick of the consequences of your choices, it doesn't mean you have low self-esteem. You just made naive choices that you learned from. It makes you stronger. You learn to spot things a lot faster. It becomes a trained reflex. We'll talk about triggers in a moment. Oftentimes, people will use time to create a lapse of accountability or responsibility in order to imply they have changed because the pivotal moments of proven character have passed. Kindness is a double-edged sword. It is best described as a mother bear protecting her cub, but turns around and mauls anything that threatens her cub. The mauling is the kind part of the whole action of the bear. It is the best metaphor to describe kindness. This type of kindness represents character. Kindness represents character and nice represents personality. There will always be social norms, but too much political correctness really stands on shame and many perceptions of nothing. Who knows which action is always correct? Should we care about what others think? Should we care if the perception is correct about your character? But even then, you can't force someone to like you. Some people respect you, but dislike you at the same time. Know the difference. They know you have integrity, and it's why they don't like you. It's not you, it's them. And sometimes a reflection of their shame of not putting in the same effort and worrying about your perceptions of that. Because your integrity may bring an accountability form of guilt they don't want to deal with, not short of envy, which sometimes come from a lack of accountability of action of not being able to obtain certain things through effort. As we discussed earlier, triggers are important. Not all triggers are bad. Not all triggers should be considered triggers, but think of some of them as train reflexes that alert you to make better decisions, a self-reflection for a change agent. As a society, we place too much emphasis on looking put together that it reflects a lot of mental illness. What do I mean? Psychopaths are the only ones who can always look put together and get away with a lot more than the average person who struggles with everyday stress and anxieties. So much so that anxiety drugs are pushed on people in order to look put together without actually solving the problem, which is a healthier society. There is an unhuman push to look less emotional about anything in a healthy manner without coming across as emotionally unstable. When did this start? There's a difference in having conviction versus being emotional. What's the difference? Logic. If you are emotional without logic and without strategy, then you are emotional. You can't have conviction without emotion behind it. Conviction is a state of being convinced of something that is wrong or compelled by the truth. It is an indictment. Try saying something that has a lot of meaning and weight with a monotone voice and see how much people believe you have conviction behind it. It can almost turn comical. And in fact, it is a perfect recipe to deliver an entertaining joke. It is used a lot by comedians. To show your true character involves having strong convictions, which are strong emotions with a strategy that, ladies and gentlemen, is branding. Branding is much more than logos and color palettes because branding leaves a lasting impression. People want to believe in something and they want to feel connected emotionally. Think about it in this way. When you buy something that is quality or expensive, it usually comes in a quality box with special cloth wrapping, and even though You may not need it to store it because you already have an organized, compartmentalized closet. You don't throw it away because of the feeling it gave you when you bought it. It is what the brand white glove service does for you emotionally. White glove journey that you received and the excitement it brought you. Think the same way as an entrepreneur setting up your customer journey and employee journey for your brand. What excitement can you build that lasts as an emotional party favor of sorts that you want to keep as a memory? How can you create that emotional bond with your customers? Thank you for joining us on our podcast. Be sure to follow us on social media and follow us on your favorite podcast platform.